Welcome here, guys. We're glad to have you here. Why don't you let everybody know who you are?
Hi, I'm Ethan, and I've been coming to this youth for about 2 years now, and yeah.
My name's Reed, and I've been at this church for as long as I can remember. And yeah, it's just a great place to be.
I'm Alicia. I've been coming to this church for a few years. I've been in the youth group since I was able to. Yeah, I'm a teenager. I go to GVC.
Sorry. Okay. I'm Taylor. I've gone to this church since I was like really little. Yeah.
Cool. So the first question that we have here, do you think that teens feel connected in the church today, and why or why not? Why or why not? Ethan, why don't we start with you?
Well, I think a lot of teens are connected in the church, but I also feel that a lot of them aren't, and that they have their priorities like not focused all on the church. They have a lot of other priorities like based on their everyday life, and lots of times they forget about the church and forget about God and that kind of thing.
Yep, cool. Reed?
It's kind of like a yes and no thing. So really, I feel connected in that we have youth groups, and there's lots of ways for us to be connected in church and to be involved in that sort of thing. But also, some of the messages in the Sunday service aren't necessarily geared more towards teens, so sometimes it can get a little bit boring for us.
Taylor, how do you feel about it?
Honestly, like the same way that they feel. And then also for some teens, like if they've never been introduced to God, then obviously they're not going to feel connected at all.
Right.
It's like they don't know God or the church.
Right. This isn't the question that we had written down, but what do you think is one way that would be a good way to connect to a teen for the first time?
I would probably start by just introducing them to a youth group and the people that they're surrounded with in that group, and just kind of get to know what it's all about and why we're there.
Cool.
Yeah, like I'd also if a teen was new to like the church and stuff, I'd first find out like what's their backstory, like what they've lived through and that kind of thing, and then carry on from then. And then I would slowly introduce like God to them, like not just all like drop it on them and then give it all to them all in one speech, like kind of just introduce and that kind of thing and go on from there.
Right. Almost like you need to make a relationship with them before you can really.
Yeah, just like give it all to them and that kind of thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Cool. Okay, why don't we go to the next question? Okay, this is one that we might have some opinions on, so I think this is an interesting one. What are some frustrations that you feel teens have about the church?
I feel like if I look at my grandparents, they're the oldest generation I know, and I know they can be slightly judging of the teenagers that they're growing up to see, and I feel like the older generations in the church, probably like the oldest two generations, are probably slightly judging the teenagers in that way, like how they dress. I know my grandparents also, like they don't really, I know like my grandma, she wears like these German Mennonite dresses, so she would love it if I wore those too. But yeah, I feel like the way that the church is kind of geared is the older generations want to kind of run it how they think it should be run. So they're trying to change the younger generations to be more like them. I feel like that's definitely a frustration with me. I don't like to be changed, so I want to be me and have a connection with God, but not being forced into it by other people.
Right. Do you think it'd be fair to say that sometimes it's expected that teens will understand what we're doing, but we don't understand teens as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. What do you guys think?
Oh, well, or you can.
Okay. Well, it's kind of just the same thing. It's like sometimes I get up in the morning. I don't really want to go to church because I know most of these messages aren't going to be like really teaching me anything in specific. Like it's more either just a broad church or geared more towards adults and stuff. So that's kind of like a frustration for me is I don't want to really wake up in the morning and go to church on a Sunday and then hear a message like that isn't really related to me all the time. Like every once in a while, yeah, like I'll listen to church, right? But having every once in a while also having a message about teens and stuff, teaching us some new things would also be kind of nice.
Yeah, like I'm gonna like take it in a different perspective. I just think that church can be a very like, and even just learning about God can be a very hard topic and like a very like confusing topic, like for the teens, like getting into that. Like I just think that it can be hard to learn and hard to like know what you're learning about. So that's like one thing that I think can be hard for teens and for myself. Like it was hard for me. Like a lot of it was confusing to how
Right.
it all worked and just a very confusing topic.
Yeah. So do you guys like feel like teens are trying to understand, but they're having difficulty understanding what's
Yeah,
being presented?
Like a lot of teens are trying to understand. I just think like it is a confusing topic and there's a lot to learn about it and
Yeah,
that
for
kind of
sure.
thing.
Yeah, definitely. Confusing if you're starting off new.
Right. And there's so much. You feel like there's so much to know, and like you know parts of it, but you're not sure about all of it. Kind of
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Next question. So, what do you guys think that the church does well for teens?
Well, the church has lots of opportunities for teens to be involved in church, like youth groups and being able to serve in worship and PowerPoint, Pro Presenter, all that stuff, kids' church. There's lots of opportunities for teens and, yeah, just being able to get involved in church. Some churches don't have those opportunities for younger people, so it's kind of nice to have that here.
Right.
Well, for me, I think one of the biggest parts would be youth because youth takes like a lot of teens in and makes it fun, but also helps them learn and grow in learning God and learning about God and that kind of thing.
Right. Cool.
Yeah, it is really nice to have like the youth group because then it's like fun, but you also learn a bunch and then makes it like easier and stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree. The youth group is probably one of my favorite things. Well, it is my favorite thing in the church. It's nice to be able to go somewhere and know like all the people there and be able to learn about God surrounded by the people that I care about.
Right. Do you feel like being online has like made a divide between teens and the church a bit more, or do you think it's connected them more because they can watch whatever they want?
It depends on what you've grown up with. If you've grown up in a Christian family, I feel like it's connected more because you want to try to stay positive through it all, and God really helps with that. But if you grew up with like in a non-Christian family, then it kind of just creates a bigger divide. I
Right.
feel.
Because what's the reason for going online? Kind of
Exactly.
idea. Yeah. What about you guys? Do you feel the same way? Do you feel like being online has made it harder to be involved in church, or is it like easier for you guys?
I feel that it made a bigger impact going to church in person than it would online to a lot of people. And yeah, like I just think it'd make quite a bit more of an impact if you actually come to church and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, like I know in our church, like people like there's always people pray for you and that kind of thing, and pray for people, and there's always that kind of thing. And online, it's a lot harder to do that. And like I just feel that it's better in person.
Okay. Here's another interesting one. What are some struggles that you feel teens face today and you wish that the church knew about?
I feel like the church sees more of the positive from teens, but there's actually a lot more loneliness, sadness, depression in the teens' lives than the church sees, and so they don't really do a lot to help out in that way, and that would be really nice. So I feel like they need to see that kind of struggle, and not just they need to see not just the good parts, but also the bad parts of a teen's life.
Right. So you said that the church sees more of the positive. Like, what are the positive things that you think that the church sees about teens, not necessarily the negatives?
Most of the time, if you go to a church, you know somebody there. For me, it was Taylor. I knew Taylor, so I was always happy. I was never really worried about being alone, that kind of thing when I was at church. So just kind of when the church sees the positive that others bring out in teens when you're around, but when you're alone, then it's completely different. So the church, I feel, needs to recognize more of the negative that could be happening behind the scenes or the mask, per se.
Right. You feel like kind of like they see you being happy at church and being happy in certain areas, but they don't see you when you're not feeling that way.
Exactly.
What do you think are some of the struggles that cause the negative parts for teens that we don't see? Do you what are the things that cause you to not feel, or that cause you to feel lonely, or more like alone?
Well, like friends and not having friends is can make you feel very lonely. And then with school being online and stuff, then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that can give you anxiety and stuff and lots of stress.
Yeah, I remember being you're around your guys' age, and I remember being in high school, and I remember some mornings I would feel sick because I was so anxious about going to school the next day. I didn't want to see certain people, and I didn't want to I knew my assignments were all late, and I'm like, oh, I can't go to school today. They're gonna get me, and I just remember that feeling of oh no, right? And maybe you guys feel some of those
Dread.
What's that?
You just dread going to school.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it could be a lot bigger than that too. There's bigger problems that people face with family and that kind of thing, and that happens at home, and there's even bigger things like abuse and that kind of thing that the church doesn't know about, and people come to church and act all happy like nothing's happening. But there's lots of times bigger problems, and people go through a lot of harder things, especially family and that kind of thing that church doesn't know about.
Right.
And also, social media, that's a big one for teens right now. Some people don't, if they don't feel accepted on social media by all their followers or all that stuff, then they feel they're worthless, they don't mean anything, no one likes them. So it's just you gotta, if you see that, you gotta make them realize that that's not everything. Social media isn't their entire life, and that God will always love them. All that stuff. The church is very supportive, and yeah, you can always find someone to help with that.
Right. What would be a good way for the church to find out about some of the struggles that you guys have? What's a good way for us to help you guys in that?
Well, there's lots of options. Even just in youth, maybe having some nights, just super chill nights, whatever, where you just kind of real honest. Everyone's being honest. I know my other youth leader has talked a lot about he's had a few nights where him and his guys, they're just super honest with each other, and it's kind of really helped to see how many other people are struggling with the same things, and just to get through it all together.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be one idea.
Right.
And connecting that, even one-on-one conversations, with the leader or someone and that person, just go and just have an honest conversation one-on-one. I think they'd open up a lot more to that and that kind of thing.
Especially with someone that you would trust.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going off of what Reed said earlier about social media, a lot of teens, I know personally, feel like they're missing out on things if they don't do something on social media. If there's a challenge or a trend going around and they don't do it, they feel like they might be missing out, and they might be looked down upon because of that. So that's another thing that could really just trigger anxiety and just kind of everything.
Yeah.
Horrible that you can think of.
Yeah. Is FOMO still a word? Fear of missing out?
Yes.
Yeah, that's still
Yeah.
a thing. Okay.
But connecting to her, this is a bit off, but social media, I think, is taking a lot of that's a very big distraction from church and God and that kind of thing. I think right now, people are a lot on social media, and they have to do what's on social media, and I think that's another thing that's taking away from coming to church, coming to youth, just a lot of social media and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a big, it's a big distraction. Probably one of the the biggest right now and probably for a while. Just like, and then you have all these new things like the Reels or TikTok or whatever, and you can just scroll through there forever, and then you just get stuck on there and you end up wasting like 3 hours of your day. I've done that plenty of times, and it's not fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've definitely done that before.
Yeah, people might not see it for what it is, but I see it as an issue that needs to be addressed, where there's too much going on in social media. Like I know my mom actually deleted all her social media accounts because it's just getting so overwhelming, and I know that's quite a huge thing, and it's a growing issue that needs to be addressed.
Right. Yeah. Do you feel like teens know that social media is so stressful for them? Like, are they aware of it?
I think some teens might be, but some might just see it as, oh, it's just like it's just Pinterest, it's just Instagram, it's just Snapchat, it's just TikTok, it's just an app,
Right.
and they might use the excuse, oh, it's like something I like. I watch videos, I learn things from, but it's an issue when you're starting to get anxious and lonely and depressed because you feel like you're missing out on the things that are going around on these apps.
Right. Do you feel like teens sometimes feel more connected to like social media than they do like the church or people around them?
Like yeah,
Definitely.
I think that like it's like lots of times teens take social media over coming to church and that kind of thing, and like I think a really good thing to help with that, like our other church, we did like a fast for 3 weeks or whatever. And me personally, I don't use social media a lot. I fasted for my main social media like Snapchat and that kind of thing, but my mom also did it. Like I think if someone did something like that, like it would help, like it helped me see and that kind of thing, like what it's doing, and like you don't need that all the time every day, like and it, like I read the Bible more and that kind of thing. I did more of that when that happened. So it was,
Right. Purposefully taking
Yeah.
breaks from things that
Yeah.
you know are stressing you out.
And admitting that those things are stressing you out, that's the hardest part. It's just like, because I think most teens probably at some point have realized like social media is a bit of a problem, but then they try not to admit it, right? They try and kind of hide it a little bit, and that's the biggest problem. Is like people need to just admit it and like talk to someone, and then it's a lot easier.
Right. Cool. Okay. What is something that the church could do to better support teens or help to include them into the overall church body?
I feel like advertising more opportunities, say for greeting people at the door or ushering even, the worship team, lighting, video, stuff like that, children's ministry could, like those opportunities could help teens grow in the church more.
Right, like including them into those programs.
Yeah, more. I know like a few opportunities have come up, but they aren't really advertised a whole lot. So if they were advertised in like, you could say like teens welcome to join for this, or like this kind of meeting, like if you want to come, just come.
Right, so
Right,
it's
like
like
the-
start inviting teens into like the meetings for like the different ministries.
Yeah.
Be really cool. Yeah.
and I think that like having teens even come into the church and just like do those kind of things to help out wouldn't exactly help them with like running their ministry, but it helped them like be at church and be comfortable coming to the church. Like a lot of the times it's like uncomfortable coming to church, like you don't want to really be there, and I think that would help like with wanting to be at the church, and then you'd be more comfortable coming to the church and like then learning about God and that kind of thing.
Right, so you think that even like, let's say you don't connect so much with the message, or you find it maybe
Yeah.
somewhat difficult to connect in certain ways, but having a task or having a
Yeah.
job in the church would help you feel more connected
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
If there were like more opportunities for teens to like participate in or whatever, like Alicia said, like ushering or like greeting people at the door, they would feel more like included in the church. And then also, like Reed was saying, like a service more focused on teens, then that would like make them more connected or whatever.
Right.
It would show more acceptance for the teens, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Right, and even going into your world a little bit, maybe like you know, where instead of you being expected to come into our world, we kind of come together into like we kind of figure out. Well, I don't know how to say it properly, but
Create
like,
a new world.
create a new world. That's a great phrase.
And unlocking parts of your faith that you haven't really touched before, like places that you didn't really ever feel you needed to go.
Okay, like what do you maybe expand on that? A bit
Well,
more.
like if they would have more messages geared towards teens and stuff, you could maybe figure out more about where God wants you to be in your faith and like his plan for you is, and maybe that would convince you maybe get involved in missions trips or whatever, worship ministry, whatever it is, like just to get involved more, and yeah.
Right, so kind of like having messages or things designed to kind of point you in the direction, like giving you direction in your faith
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah, like I think a lot of times, like for me personally, like a lot of the services are geared more towards like what adults like and that kind of thing. And for me, it's like it can get a bit boring and that kind of thing. And it'd be nice if they like geared it a bit more so that adults would like it, and also so teens would understand it more and like enjoy it more,
Right.
so it's not as boring.
You're not wanting to take away from the adult side of it, but you
Yeah.
want to also be able to understand it as a teen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What Reed
Yeah.
said, like about missions trips, that could also be extended to teenagers, like ages like 14 even, 14 or 15 even, to come along to just kind of help us, or to help us show, or help show us the world and kind of learn more how we can help the rest of the people in the world learn about God. And then there's a phrase, when you're teaching someone, you're learning about the subject more than you realize. So that kind of thing. So if you went on like a missions trip to Mexico and helped at an orphanage, say, and you're helping others, it could help you connect to God more than you realize.
Like from what I'm hearing from you guys is that like, you guys want to be engaged. Like you guys want to
Yeah.
be more involved in the church, but you're looking for opportunities.
Yeah.
And there is opportunities. It'd be nice just to kind of let teens know a little bit more that there is opportunities, because some may not know where, like they might want to get involved, they just don't know where to get involved and how.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and maybe seeing like some of these different ministries, like not just as a place where adults go and do some of the work, but that teens are also welcomed
Yeah.
and involved in those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Okay, so for you guys, oftentimes I think when we read the Bible, we often see Jesus as this man who traveled and he kind of took on disciples and he taught a bunch of people, but we often don't think about how he grew up and he was a teenager at one point and how he took on disciples. And a lot of people and a lot of scholars say that the disciples he took on were probably teenage age, so it could have been between the ages of like 15 and 30. Do you guys still feel like God has a role for teens, and like he obviously knows you guys? What do you think he has in store for you as teenagers in the body of Christ?
I think that like he knows us as teens different from adults, and I think he just wants us to like keep learning about him and keep growing our ministry and that kind of thing, and just keep trying to go to church and like that kind of thing, and just trying to show like that we want to learn and that kind of thing.
Right? Right on.
Yeah, and God has had his plan for you since before you were ever born, and he knows his plan. You just need to figure out kind of what that is, and yeah, don't feel discluded or like God doesn't have a plan for you, like you're sitting on the sidelines, because God has a plan for everyone. You just need to figure out what that is and then pursue that.
Right? Yeah?
Yeah, I know personally, I've never really felt like there's been a huge plan for me. I've never had a huge connection with God. Only this like past year, maybe year and a half, I felt more involved. but yeah, like I've always felt like more of an on the sidelines kind of person. I don't really like being the center of attention, so I never really thought about it a lot. But like now that I think of it, like I've never really felt a huge connection, but I definitely want to know more.
Right. Yeah. Cool. So you're kind of like on the sidelines, but you're looking to get into the game, but you're not like you're just kind of, I don't know how to say it, testing it out or trying to figure out how
Testing the
how do you
waters.
get in there?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think that, I mean, you guys make up a good point with like the sidelines thing, and I think that was part of the question. But yeah, do you feel like teenagers as a whole kind of feel like they're on the sidelines, or do you think teenagers feel like they're involved in part of the ministry?
I feel like as a whole, they probably feel more on the sidelines. I don't think there's a specific reason. I think it's just kind of an overall. What we've been talking about this whole time is kind of like all those different issues and stuff is why we kind of might be on the sidelines more than in as like a main character kind of feel.
Right. Yeah. Taylor, do you have any thoughts about it?
And then also, going along with what Alicia said, like you always see like adults doing this and never like any teens. So then you'd be like, oh, well that's more like an adult thing. Okay, then I'll just stay here on the sidelines.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you struggle to find like because you don't see teens engaging as much. Do you feel like maybe you don't belong there, kind of thing, or?
Yeah, like for some people, like, or even if there is like teens doing it, then it's like, oh well, like that's so great. Like I could never do that, and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, like connecting, like I feel that a lot of times, like even ministry trips and like anything really in the church, a lot of it is adult based, and a lot of time teens feel that, well, I don't want to like do this and stuff. I don't want to barge in. Like that's their kind of thing, and like it's not really based for them type thing. Like they more base it on adults and that kind of thing.
Right.
I think it would be nice if they more so based it so that teens were open to come if they wanted.
And it's crazy to think, like when Jesus asked his disciples to follow him, like he didn't just take like the oldest people that were the wisest people. He he said, "Hey, you come follow me." And it's like, maybe he's saying that to teens too, but maybe teens maybe they don't feel that way.
Yeah, and you could even say like it's kind of like a climbing wall thing. Like most teens, they don't want to climb up the wall. Most teens they kind of sit back and blend in, and they don't want to really show, oh hey, I'm a Christian. God loves you, this and this and that. They don't want to come out and like just go preach the gospel, whatever. But then there's some, and it kind of grows as you get older and stuff, and then you start climbing the wall until you get to the top, and then you're
On
there.
a pedestal.
Yeah.
Do you feel like a part of it is because you're still trying to figure things out in your faith that you're hesitant in saying things, or is it like, are there other reasons for being shy about it?
It's just kind of like you want your friends to. Some people it's more of like a popular thing. Oh, people won't think I'm so cool because I'm a Christian, and then they won't accept me or all that stuff. For some people, and then some people it's just they don't like being in the spotlight. So I think it's different for everyone.
Yeah. Which person or event has been the most influential in your faith in your teenage years?
Well, it's been a lot of people like over the years. Mostly parents, right? I've grown up in a Christian home, all that stuff. But also like youth leaders and pastors and friends, like just surrounding yourself with lots of people who are also believers. And yeah, they've all been big influences, but probably mostly my parents.
Yeah, like for me, like especially my parents, like I think that like my parents have made a very big impact. Like I've grown up like in a Christian home all my life. I also think for my teenage years, like going to youth was a very big part in like learning more about God and growing my ministry. I think that was probably one of my biggest parts in my teen years, learning about God.
Yeah, I agree. Like when you're younger, then it's like more your parents. But then as you get older, then it's like more like at your youth or whatever, because then you're more comfortable there and stuff.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Cool. Okay.
That was very dramatic.
I'm not dramatic. Okay. In what ways does following Christ impact the way that you live? And do you guys feel like you would live differently if you didn't follow Christ?
Or you can go.
Well, I mean, following Christ, it's impacted me in a lot of ways. Just being kind and, I don't know, bright, Matthew 5 verse 44 says, but I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. And yeah, just like following Christ, if I wouldn't be following Christ, like most non-believers, they wouldn't love their enemies. But like following Christ, then you love everyone, even your enemies. And it's, people look at you differently. They look at you and they're like, oh, well, I want what that guy has or that girl has, because it's different from everyone else.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's probably, there's a big difference in that, because right now in the world that we live in, it seems like people are really polarized against each other. Like it's either you're this or you're that.
Mhm.
And so do you feel like being a believer makes you different in the way that is different from everybody else because of that?
It sets you apart in a way that people notice, and then it sets you apart, but it's in a good way. It's not like a bad, like you're an outsider. It's more of just like you're different from everyone else because you're a Christian, but it shows in the way that you act for people. Yeah.
Like for me, I think that like having God, like whenever I like go through something or I'm feeling down, like I can pray to Him or something. Like feeling for the people who don't have anyone to believe in or don't believe in God. Like I just wonder, like if they're going through something or struggling, like what do they do or how do they feel? Like they don't have anyone to pray to or that kind of thing. Like for me, it's just like I don't know what I would do if I wouldn't like believe in God or that kind of thing.
Yeah, like we have the Bible, like we
Yeah.
can look through there for all the answers to pretty much any of the problems that we would ever face. So, like for non-believers, it'd probably be really tough to go through some of those bigger problems and stuff.
Yeah, you kind of feel like you have a hope no matter what
Yeah.
happens, kind of
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, like you have the dictionary for life.
God always He always forgives you, like through what you do and that kind of thing. For like them, like how do they feel? Like they don't like feel forgiveness, I guess you could say. So
I feel like my life would probably look very different if it wasn't impacted by God in any way. I probably wouldn't make the decisions I've made. A lot of teens now get into drugs and alcohol, and I know that sounds like a stereotypical kind of thing, but it really is something that goes on. Even if they are Christian, they might make a wrong decision and not be able to get out of it. But with God, there's definitely help for that. I feel like I probably wouldn't be the person I am today if I hadn't been touched by God whatsoever.
Yeah, and maybe even going back to like what Ethan was saying before about how having faith in God allows you to like have hope or be able to move
Yeah.
on past certain things. And like you're talking about teens turning to drugs and alcohol and that kind of stuff. Do you feel like that might be an alternative to God, like when you don't know what to do, that you turn to these things?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of teens might revert to that instead of going to God for help.
Right.
They might think that it won't actually help. Praying to God might not actually help because sometimes it may take a while to get an answer or the answer you need from God or to hear it properly.
and like it can make like a lot of teens can get anxious and that kind of thing, and a lot of times I don't think they feel that God will help them, so they like what can I do in that moment where they're feeling down or that kind of thing, so they find something to make them feel better, like in that case drugs or alcohol and that kind of thing, to make them like feel better, I guess you could say. So like they don't go to God lots of the time, and I think they either some realize that later, or they realize it as they're doing it and that kind of thing, that they made a bad decision. And
And I think sometimes even believers feel that way too. Like if we don't go to God for something, we might turn to something else maybe it's food, maybe it's whatever. But believers can have that too if we don't turn to God for our relief.
Yeah. And I had a friend who's not a believer, and he said that there wasn't really much proof for Jesus except for just a book. But I mean, it's not really just a book. It's a lot of different things. And I mean, if some people just kind of look at it, they don't really go through it and read it ever. So I think like just even reading it, it helps you to realize how important Jesus and God is in just life in general,
Right.
in everyday life.
and how like the Bible is so much, like there's so much information and that kind of thing that helps show that God was a thing and is a thing. And I think like if people took the chance and read the Bible, I think it would show them a lot. Like for me too, I've read the Bible and it showed me a lot more than, it's like I've always just been taught like believe in God and go to church, but reading the Bible made a big impact on that and showing me like a greater path to that.
Right, because like when you read the Bible,
Yeah.
you see that you kind of find that
Yeah.
these things are true. Like these
Yeah.
are things that I can add to my life. These are not just. It's not just a book.
Yeah.
And you find it out for yourself. It's not just something you're being told. So
Right.
you're actually like discovering it and looking into it on your own. And it's a different experience.
Yeah, it's cool to think that God left this book for you guys to find out because He knew that there was truth in there that He wanted you guys to know.
Mm-hmm.
It's really cool. Yeah. Okay, Taylor, we haven't gotten to you yet.
On like a completely different part of it, like if I didn't believe and I hadn't believed, then I wouldn't have gone to church or youth, and then I wouldn't have gotten closer to or met a lot of the friends that I have now, who are a very big part of my life. So then it would be very different.
Right. Like you feel like you would have different friends maybe and different interests maybe, or how would
Yeah,
that
like
work?
for school friends, they would be still the same, but like
Youth leaders, I feel, have made an impact too. I count my youth leaders as my friends. Other people I've met you guys through youth, so I wouldn't know you guys. And yeah, it's been an impact, definitely.
Right. Cool. Okay.
Really?
He's getting ready.
And he says he's not dramatic.
He's
a little,
loosening up, you know?
a little like whatever this is.
I'm not awkward on camera at all, or
Yeah.
awkward in life at all.
I wish.
Okay, next question. Okay, so what is something that you guys find about your faith that is exciting to you?
Well, it's just really cool how big God is, and it's just crazy to think about how big He actually is. And then He still hears and sees like all the little things in everyday life, like even in someone like me, He sees everything that I do, and it's just crazy how someone like me, like He would still pay attention to all those little details, and He's such a big God.
Like I feel that like you can never, like you're always learning about something about Him and the Bible, and like He always wants you to, and I don't think there's ever, like you're never done learning about Him. Like it's always like for anybody, you always just keep learning new things about Him and the Bible and that kind of thing.
It's exciting to you that you
Yeah,
can keep
like
on
you
learning
can
more
keep on
things.
learning, and you always find new things like along the way about Him and the Bible and that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another quite exciting part is like once you die, you're not like you still get to spend an eternity up with God, and yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, same thing with me. Going off of what all of you have said, he's so big, and I think it's crazy because you think about it, and this Earth is huge, and there are other planets surrounding us that are even bigger, and to think that he made those, like, by speaking. Like that is crazy. And then yeah, going off of what Taylor said, like as soon as like once we die, like we're not actually like dead. Like we're gonna go somewhere after this. And I think one of the questions I'm gonna ask God when we're up there, like when we get to heaven, is why were mosquitoes and spiders invented? That is like one of my biggest questions, and that's exciting to me to be able to finally get an answer for that. Hopefully,
Just Google
so.
it.
Why does God make mosquitoes and spiders? Google knows. Based off of reading the Bible 5 billion times. Yeah, that's really great. Yeah, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, but what I'm hearing from you guys in this is just like, I mean, even in our conversation in general, it's like you guys as teenagers, you guys want to be involved. Like, you guys want to be engaged and you want to learn more about God. And like what Ethan's saying, like there's always more to know. And like what Taylor and Alicia, you guys are saying, and Reed as well, like he gives us hope for after our life. Like he gives us hope in general, and there's something to move towards.
And
I feel
there's
like,
something to look forward to.
right.
But like you're always going to learn about him and grow your relationship with him here on earth, and to think one day you can go live with him, like in real, like after you're done on this earth.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's a really big thought.
Totally. It makes you think about life differently too, probably, because this is just a temporary
Yep.
space for us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, that was dramatic again.
Last question. Okay, I think this is a pretty cool question. So, what do you guys think would help teens grow in their faith today?
Well, I mean, there's lots of things, like just the Bible, just read it. But I mean, there's lots of cool apps, and one that I use, it's called Streetlights, and it's the Bible. It's just like a Bible app, but then you got just trap music or just modern music playing in the background, and it's just kind of, it's easier to get into, like for people that like music or whatever, than just to listen to that stuff. You're still listening to the Bible, right? But then it's just got the music there too, and then easier to concentrate or easier to listen to.
Right, and that's part of like something that about teens that might be different than adults is like, you guys are used to having noise and having like things on your phone and that kind of stuff, and part of the way you can interact with the Bible is having some of that noise along with that as well.
Like I think it's a lot of things, and I think this question it's like pretty much what we've been talking about like all evening, really, or lots of what we've been talking about, like with the church and how the church can help us like be more involved in that kind of thing. That all revolves around this question being like that can all help with like learning about God and that kind of thing.
Right, like the whole idea of like being involved and
Yeah.
feeling like connected as like not just entering somebody else's world, but them coming into your world as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you'd also be like more motivated to like be more focused on God and have him like a top priority.
Right. Yeah, so what kind of things, maybe let's enlarge on that a little bit. So what kind of things would motivate you to do those kinds
Well,
of
like
things?
being more involved, then you would like feel more connected, and then you'd have that motivation from everybody around you.
Right, you feel like making it more part of your life, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that telling the teens of different church, like every church, just opening up more opportunities or advertising it at least. I know one thing I would love to do is go on missions trips. My dad used to work as a youth leader in a youth group, and I always looked forward to one day being able to go on a missions trip with that youth, going to help an orphanage or something like that. Unfortunately, I never got to that age at that church. I moved to other churches, but I'm hoping that someday I'll be able to go on missions trips or help out more in the church with the worship team, maybe, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. And just in this, we talked a lot about getting more involved in the church and making it more part of life and that kind of stuff. But I think maybe there's another question in there, and that's kind of, do you think that you guys want to have just things to do in the church, or do you want to be led by people to do these things? Do you feel like being discipled by somebody is important, or do you think that just having these tasks would help you feel more involved?
I think they're both important in different ways. Like you can having a bit of both in pretty much like anything. Like if there's two options, just having a mixture of both kind of gives it the extra punch.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Just going off of what he said. Yeah, I feel like definitely we need to be shepherded almost, so we can learn how to do everything properly. But then also learning how to be a leader and kind of taking charge when it's needed would also be really good.
Yeah. Do you guys feel like it's intimidating to want to do something but not have an entry point into it? Like have somebody who's like, hey, you should do this, or that kind of thing?
Yeah, like I think with almost anything, like there always has to, like, there's a leader, like someone, it would be, well, usually there should be a leader, like someone to help you and show you like how to like do it and how to like get into it and that kind of thing. Like you were saying, like an entry point, like having someone there to lead and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
All right, thanks guys for having this conversation. It's been great. Let's say goodbye to the congregation.
Bye.